I had a conversation with the Lord one time, and I said, Lord, the number one reason that I hear that people don't tithe is they say, well, that's in the Old Testament. That's in the Old Testament. And so I said to the Lord, Lord, you put this in Malachi 3, and then there's Malachi 4, and then Matthew 1. Couldn't you have just waited? I mean, just a little while. I mean, these verses only miss the New Testament by like 15 verses. I mean, couldn't you just waited just a little while and put it, you know what the Lord said? I just felt in my spirit, he said, I put it right where I wanted it. And the reason is, here's point number one, because tithing is a test. Tithing is a test. See, God is testing our hearts. Now, here's why I believe he chose 10%. By the way, the word tithe is a Hebrew word. Ma'ashra is the Hebrew word, and it means 10th part, or 10%, 10th part, 10th. Okay, so that's where we get this from, that we know it's 10%. Okay, here's why I think he chose 10%. First of all, I think he chose a percentage because it's fair to everyone. It doesn't matter if you make 30,000 or 300,000, it's a penny on every dime. It's the same for every person. But here's the reason I think he chose 10, because for some reason, many times when you see the number 10 in the Bible, it represents testing. How many plagues were there in Egypt? 10, right? Now, I could have said it a different way. I could have said, how many times did God test Pharaoh's heart? Because that's what he did, but we're familiar with how many plagues there were. All right, here's the second question. How many commandments are there? 10. How many times did God test Israel in the wilderness? 10. That's correct. How many times were Jacob's wages changed? 10. God was testing his heart. How many days was Daniel tested? 10. How many virgins were tested in Matthew 25? 10. How many days of testing are mentioned in Revelation? 10. How many disciples were there? No, there were 12. I was just testing you. I was just testing you. Okay. So tithing is a test. But here's something that you might not know. It's a two-way test. God not only tests you, but this is the only place in Scripture that I've found where God says, you can test me. The way you test gold to see if it's pure. You know what God is saying? Test me to see if I'm pure. Test me. I want you to. I want you to see, because I want to rebuke the devourer for you, but it depends on whether you're going to thank me and worship me and walk in faith, and whether you're going to believe that 90% with God's blessing will go farther than 100% without.